Sahana Vavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Saha Viryankaravavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. The study of human composition. First, he goes to explain the body, which is known to us. The body has two sets of organs, organs of perception and organs of action. You receive the stimulus from the world through organs of perception, which is an automatic effect. There is no particular effort being put in by the senses. It receives the stimulus, it's passive. Same way, the body throws back responses to the world through organs of action, which is again passive. In between these two, there is an active process that is happening, which is the reaction. So if the reactions were to be happening with reference to mind, which is full of likes and dislikes, those likes and dislikes can be classified into two categories. That pertains to my body, my mind, my intellect. I react to the stimulus, keeping the reference of the desires pertaining to my body, my mind, my intellect. That is called selfish. Then I do have likes and dislikes, desires pertaining to the welfare of another person's body, mind, and intellect. That another could be one person, could be a group of people. It doesn't matter. Any body, mind, intellect different from my body, my mind, my intellect. That's called unselfish. So that introduction of unselfishness is where for the person happens when he falls in love with someone. Usually that happens with the opposite sex. You see? But nevertheless, the principle is same. You see? Now, till that point, I was concerned only about anything that happens, I react only based on if it connects to my body, I will react. If it is not connected to my body, I don't react. That's called selfish. Unselfishness is I react connected to a particular group of people. That could be my spouse, my child, my father, mother, brother, sister. If it is a man, sister-in-law, more than brother-in-law, isn't it? Suddenly he becomes so concerned about, sister-in-law's welfare. If the sister-in-law were to be younger to my wife, maximum attention they get. That's why we say, see, as men, we never have a problem with sister-in-laws, but always women have problem with sister-in-laws. Men don't have that. They're all very open, It could be any number, or it could be with reference to people belonging to a particular community. I'm so concerned about a particular community of people. Or it could be extended to country. It could be extended even to humanity. My species. You see, this is the focus. So here I react to things only to that circle. That reactive mode is called unselfish mode of reaction. Then comes the third possibility where it has got nothing, the stimulus is not allowed to engage in any reaction with the mind's likes and dislikes, mind's desires, be it selfish or unselfish, it doesn't matter. It is submitted to the intellect, and intellect processes that keeping the reference point of obligation, because intellect operates on obligation. Then it is called a selfless reaction. Now what's the difference then? Difference is only one. Whenever you have a selfish reaction, you get agitated in the present and future. All selfish reactions produces mental agitations in the present and in the future. All unselfish reactions produce agitation only in the future, not in the present. Straight away, at the time of reaction, unselfishness will not agitate you. It will give you good peace. It will give you a good state of happiness. That is called unselfish reaction. Selflessness means when the intellect reacts, no agitation in the present or in the future. So when you perform actions, you focus on your obligations and perform. In the relative sense, that is called selfless. When you extend it to the extreme, you focus on the self and function, that is enlightened being. So for all practical purpose, he completes the entire message in the first two paragraphs. That's all. If you probe in, that's why he says the reactions can vary. If the mind were to be reacting, it produces very many possibilities. He says you become emotional, you become eccentric, you become hysterical, you could even become insane, depending upon the proportion of it. Proportion of what? How many stimulus in your life you are reacting, keeping the selfish desires, unselfish desires, bracket mind, and how many stimulus that is reacting in you, keeping the intellect as a reference point. Now, if that is where to be happening, then you live a life of maturity. You are a matured person. To the extent you are allowing the stimulus to react only to the intellect, not to the mind, you are a mature person. If you allow this to react with the mind, then you will be bracketed in different levels depending upon the intensity of it, depending upon the percentage. That's about it. Now, nevertheless, this is not the idea of Vedanta. This you can learn even from personality development class. You don't require Vedanta for this. You see, you don't require philosophy. Philosophy comes into picture, spirituality comes into picture only afterwards. That is why this portion is called a practical Vedanta. Previous one, what we had given to you, introduction to Vedanta, is how to make your life properly lived in this world right now. How to live properly. That's all. That is the basic one. Vedanta is not against it. It's not saying it's not required. Of course, it is required. But that's the foundation. The foundation is that. But the edifice is going to be built only now. So far, he has put the foundation. Construction is going to start only now. Says. So the first thing he gives is this. Remember, your personality has two dimensions, I said, but there is a problem. The problem is we have no understanding of a component which exists in your personality, in your being. It's called the spirit. See, for most of you, it may look very obvious because you have heard it 100 times. You see, you hear something, 100 times, it becomes obviously correct. Straight away, we will say, yeah, there is a soul. Yeah, there is God. There is life. There is this. There is that. Each one we just use, words depending upon the thing that we have been listening to over a period of time. You keep on listening to something over a period of time, you will repeat it. But that's not the way he goes about. He says, the person who starts listening for the first time, right? Assumption is that. And he is genuinely interested to understand what is it. So he is taking up this object for him to inquire. When he is taking this subject for inquiry, what happens to him is what he says. Yes, Vedanta declares there is a thing. Body doesn't function by itself. Mind doesn't function by itself. Intellect doesn't function by itself. Now suddenly the fellow says, but it is functioning. No, it is functioning. What is that thing that has to be an enlivening factor? No. There is no such thing called enlivening factor, God, this, that. Where is it? Show me. I am a logical person. We are all scientifically oriented people. These days, people don't want to believe. Maybe, 5,000 years back, whatever their fellow says, rest of them will follow. That's what they say. When Buddha said, I'm going to come back after 2,500 years, I will take my next avatar. Is a promise given by Buddha. Don't think he's going to come back, please. He's not going to come back. Okay. It's just a figurative way of speaking. You see, it's all, they speak in symbolic languages. Okay. But why I'm saying is, it is very interesting to see how he is going to come, he said that. He has given the name also. The person who is going to be born after 2,100 years, he has given, the name was given 2,100 years back. What is his name, sir? I'm going to come as Maitreya. Maitreya means friend. What is a friend? He has understood what is going to be happening over a period of time. He says, over a period of time, the relationship between the teacher and the student would not be that of a master and disciple. Because as your ego gets bigger and bigger and bigger, as your intelligence keeps growing bigger and bigger and bigger, it is not possible for you to humble yourself. So you would expect the teacher to behave as a friend to you. And he says, I'm willing to do that also. That's why throughout the Gita, Krishna goes on saying to Arjuna, says, I'm teaching this to you. You know why? Because you are my friend. And don't think only Buddha said that. 5,000 years back, Krishna already did it. Immediately don't start. Yeah, Krishna already said Buddha is this. Don't start the fight immediately. Okay. The enlightened masters understand the student's condition. They know what is happening to people. As that intelligence keeps growing, it becomes difficult for us to live, together. You see, you can't live together, not possible. Why? Because one person has to suspend their thinking and follow. At least one party should suspend the thinking and say, okay, I'm following what you're saying, sir. We cannot do that. Why? Because the skeptical mind all keeps on asking this question: how? Prove to me. That is why we say Vedanta is an experimental science. It is science. In science, you don't start the process of inquiry after you get a proof. Remember that. Like you might know, millions of dollars were invested on the inquiry into the possibility of life in space, in some other planet. Right? Is there any proof they have for that? A businessman, you go and ask, he will say what? I better invest that money in stock market. I'll put it in mutual funds. Or if you go and ask one, South Indian fellow, South Indian Brahmin's advice will be what? Put that money in FD. Billions of dollars. What are you going to do with all that, man? Okay, there are beings living in that planet, let's say. Now, what are you going to do with that? I really used to wonder, when we see the science fiction movies, I don't know how those people speak English. I'm struggling to learn that language. But these fellows, they just land and they start talking. And they speak some language, and one fellow from here knows that language also. He interprets. I said, from where you learned that? Where? Even if they are there, even if there is a possibility of life on Mars, how many human beings are we going to be transporting from here to there? Who will go? How long will it take? See, nothing we know of. You see, we have no clue of what is going to be the consequence. There is no proof. Without any proof, they go and search. That is called scientific inquiry. Now we study science. Now studying science is very different. Okay. Inquiring into that is very different. That's why science students are there. Scientists are very minimal. You see, those who have that capacity to plunge into that unknown. But a skeptical mind comes here and asks that same question. He says, hey, what is a proof there is a thing called consciousness? There's a pure consciousness. There is soul, Atman, Brahman, God. And people ask, first give me the proof, and then I will surrender to that God. Then I will start pursuing that God. Then I am willing to accept that. See, if it is already proved, who cares whether you accept or you don't accept? Now, surrender itself means without having a clue, you presume as though it is there and you seek it. You see, that is where you become a seeker. Otherwise, you are just a believer. What's a believer? Yeah, they're like, people sitting in the tea shop, have a discussion about universe has so many planets, so many suns are there, so many things are there. How is it possible that there has to be life only in planet Earth? Must be somewhere else also has to be there. That doesn't mean he becomes a scientist. You see, he doesn't become you don't immediately call him for a lecture and say, can you give a lecture on astrophysics? You don't call him. Why? He just believes, that's about it. But a scientist is not that. What he does is he plunges into the pursuit of it. You see, but before that plunging, you have to believe that possibility when there is no proof we have in hand. It is just a postulation. You just posit a possibility. That's about it. Now, what he is doing here is he is giving three fascinating things. So don't think that it's just a groundless belief. You see, it's not a groundless belief, simply saying there is something. Now you have to disprove it. It's not like that, please. That's not the way these people go about. Bratton Russell, he gives a beautiful argument. He says, it's like I claim between Earth and Sun, there is a cup and saucer rotating the planet Earth. Now, how are you going to say it is not? How do you prove it? I say it is. Now you have to prove it is not. You see, this is just a Vedanta. You see, that's not what we do here. Nor is it just a blind beliefs. Blindly we start accepting things. Blindly we start talking about existence of something beyond. No, there is a logic. For this reasoning, there is no necessity for you to have any technical knowledge. That is interesting here. Immediately we don't say you have to study, double PhD. After that, only you can understand what it is. It's not like that. Any common man with a common sense application, he would be able to follow the logic and the reasoning done here. And he gives three fundamental reasons for us to presume the possibility of existence beyond matter, different from matter. Remember that consciousness is different from matter and it is beyond matter, or you can call it as under the matter. Below or above, whatever you call it, doesn't make a difference. It is different from matter. Matter means what, sir? Three things: body, mind, intellect. All three are matter. Body is a gross matter, mind and intellect is a subtle matter. That's about it. But matter is matter. Beyond that, there is that enlivening principle. That postulation of enlivening principle is not a matter of blind belief or a groundless one. There is a solid reasoning being done for that. And he gives three solid reasons here. This portion we need to reflect on again and again and again. You got to reflect on this. But the reasoning is very simple. I can explain that in a matter of 10 minutes. Thanks that he has already put it up in the book. So it is very easy for us. Since he has mentioned it in the book, it's very easy. All that we have to do is repeat it. That's about it. But it's very interesting to see the reasons that he gives. The first logic he gives is, in life, we can recognize change only if there is a changeless substratum backing that. Without a changeless background, a change cannot be recognized. For example, on a cloudless sky, when you are moving at 700 kilometers speed in the flight, you don't recognize any change. And there's no air pockets and all that, okay? when you move. Otherwise, there is data, 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 it goes on. That, gets into the air pockets. There's no air pockets, nothing there. Cloudless sky. When you move, it is, you don't register any change. You don't feel like moving such speed. Nothing. Why? Because there is no reference point. Isn't it? There is no reference point. With reference to the change, the rate of change of the flight, you need something other than that. Like even in the train, you see the train moving. This side you see, sometimes, we see two trains, traveling together. One side you see the train in the same direction when they move. This side you see the train looks almost, going so slow or no movement at all. Whereas the other side you see the train is moving so fast, 80 kilometer speed it goes. You can see the change. But this side you can't see the change. Why? The reference point. Now he says, apply the rule to your life also. We all recognize the change happening in the body. Suddenly gray hair comes, isn't it? You know, hair gets gray over a period of time. 65 year, you can't have a black hair. That's not possible. You see, I'm not saying you should not. You see, I'm not saying you should not. And your skin tone, you lose the toning. That's why you have this anti-aging cream. It will reverse you. Don't apply too much. You see, suddenly you will become infant baby, like that. Whatever you do recognize the change. Same way, you recognize the changes happening to your likes and dislikes also. What you liked about 5 years back is not your liking now, isn't it? What you desired then, you don't desire now. Your emotions change, your likes and dislikes changes, your desires change. Same way, your values also change, isn't it? Your beliefs change. What you valued then is not valued now. It has changed. For good or for bad, that's not my point. The point is it is changing. That's it. Is it getting better or is it getting worse is not the idea. I'm not talking about that. It does change. Your thinking pattern changes. Your emotions changes. Your likes and dislikes changes. Your body is changing. All this changes you are able to recognize in you. The question now is, if there is no backdrop of something which is changeless, you would not be able to recognize the change. But you can't see the changeless. Like you can see the body, you can see the mind changing, you can see the intellect changing. Because perception itself is possible only using the equipments. So it will see only that. It cannot go more than that. But at the same time, you can posit a possibility. There has to be something changeless, without which change cannot be recognized. I am recognizing change. Therefore, there has to be something in me which is changeless. And the changeless one is different from the changing thing. You can't say both are same. And the changeless is one entity. You can't have 5 changeless entities. We don't know of all that. You see, suddenly you can say there could be 5 changeless entities. No. Now we are moving into what? This is hypothetical. You see, Up to the point of you coming, with reference to a changeless only, I can recognize a change. I am recognizing a change. Therefore, there has to be a changeless entity. And that changeless entity has to be different from the changing entity. Up to this point is logical. Suddenly, if you go to a point where how many changeless entities I have, we don't know of that. You see, therefore, is a minimum there has to be one changeless entity. More than that, who can say? When I will be able to say that, sir? Today, I cannot say anything like that. Today, I have no clue about all those things. Discussing into that is hypothetical now. So, we don't get involved with all those things. So, Vedanta says, up to this point, you move logically to posit a possibility, though you can't see it, you can't perceive it, you can't understand it. What is the changeless entity? I don't know about it. But I do know there is a changeless entity. Step one. Then he comes to the second reasoning. And remember, these reasonings have a sequence. Okay. First, you see, there has to be something. That changeless has to be there. There is a changeless entity. And there is a difference between a changing entity and a changeless entity. Right. For that changeless entity, we have given a name. Right. Like, for example, we have given a name for something called mind. Who decided that has to be called as mind? Like, who decided an apple should be called as an apple? Who decided that? Someone must have decided, no? Now, all others have started following, calling that apple, apple. Orange, orange. At least orange we can say. Orange is orange because it has a color of orange. Okay. What about apple? Why? Who decided that? It's a name we give for, remember, the names were all given to things so that we can interact comfortably. Otherwise, you go to the shop, you have to tell the shopkeeper what you want. He will ask, what do you want? You have to describe. I want a fruit which looks of this shape, which is of this color, which is of this smell, which is of that. He will give you, except apple, he will bring everything. So instead of that, if we all come to an understanding, apple, apple. Similarly, these people gave it a name called spirit. There has to be only one name for that? Not necessarily. Like apple has a name, like water. In English, we call it as water. In Telugu, in Kannada, what is it? In Hindi, what is it? In Arabic, what is it? In Latin, what is it? In Tamil, what is it? In Sanskrit, what is it? Each language, people will call that with a particular name. Same way, the names got increased. That's about it. Or you like someone so much, you keep giving them many names, right? Pet names we keep, no, to people. In school, you would have kept for your teacher. Or college professors. Yeah, I'm not giving examples. Okay. Each one have to develop on your own. Remember your college days, your school days. You immediately, because I'm getting, few teachers' names. Not good ones. That's why I can't say that. That's not the way you are supposed to keep. And now I am worried. Because some of you may keep names for me also. You know, the law of karma, no, comes back. You know, whatever you give, it comes back. Okay. The name they gave it is spirit, soul, Atman, Brahman, pure consciousness, etc. God, all this. There is a changeless entity. First reasoning. Second level of reasoning he goes is, second level of reasoning gives a different dimension to the same thing. Second level of reasoning he gives is, everything that we interact with in the world, we keep on claiming the things as mine. This is 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 my car. This is my pen. This is my mobile. My book. My house. My wife. My husband. My child. My God. This is my God. Mine. Same way we claim this. Here he says, you need to understand immediately, the person who is claiming this is mine, the possessor, has to be different from the possessed. It cannot be the same. You are different from pen. You are different from book, different from car, different from house, different from the whatever you claim as mine. The possessor is different, the possessed is different. They are two different things. Now apply the rule to your equipments. My head is paining, we say, correct? My back is paining. What is that? Apply the same rule here. That means the body is different. The person who is claiming that body as possessed by me is different. They are not the same. That is different. This is different. Now what are you? Are you the body, or you the possessor who claims that this is my body? My mind, my intellect. Same rule is applied to your mind and to your intellect also. My ego doesn't allow me to accept it. We do say that, no, isn't it? Which means what? What does it mean? Ego also is possessed by somebody, which means what are you? Are you that ego? Are you the one who is claiming the possessing of that ego? So what are you, sir? Possessed or the possessor? You have to be the possessor according to you, not according to Vedanta. Remember this. Vedanta is not claiming anything here. Vedanta is only doing the analysis on your behalf. Vedanta is not saying you are that. That is later on. You see, it is doing the analysis on your behalf. It says, hey, what you claim is this. It is only explaining what you are claiming to yourself all the time. But what do we feel, sir? We get that fear of what? What am I? Who am I when you ask? The problem we have is, if I remove the body, if I remove the mind, if I remove the intellect, I get into nothingness. I don't exist. No body, no mind, no intellect means I don't exist, is what you feel one hand. On the other hand, you keep claiming, I am the possessor, that is possessed. Practical Vedanta, even though I did mention in the beginning, there is no philosophy in this portion. It's too much only. We are starting Vedanta only now. It's only beginning. It's tiring only. You will get tired. You know, but try to stay. Stay in that thought as much as possible. In the classical presentations and literatures and all that, repetition is considered as a mistake, is wrong. One of the faults of classical things is to repeat, but in teaching that's allowed. In the teaching, repetition is allowed, so we keep repeating it, keep saying the same thing again and again. So first thing he says, you recognize the change there is. So in the first stage, what is it? I am standing apart. There is change, changeless. Change, changeless. In the second layer of reasoning, the question comes is, am I the changing factor or am I the changeless factor? There, the second reasoning of analysis, who am I? In this analysis, he indicates that it looks like I am not the changing possessed body, mind and intellect. I have to be the changeless entity which keeps claiming as a possessor of the body, mind and intellect. Second layer. Reasoning happening at the second level. Then he goes to the third layer of reasoning. The third layer of reasoning is, think carefully right through your life. You find the persistent existence of I. Isn't it? You're a child, you said, I am a child. I am a boy. I am a teenager. I am youth. I am a man. I am an old man, etc. I am healthy. I am sick. I am intelligent. I am dumb. We don't claim that, but isn't it? Now the question is, the child is different, the boy is different, the teenage is different, youth is different. All this different factors gets equated to that one factor. I am seeing, I am hearing, I am smelling, I am tasting, I am touching. I like, I don't like. A like is different, dislike is different. Seeing is different, touching is different, running is different, walking is different. But all the time we say what? I am, I am, I am. Right through your life, that I am, I am, I am keeps coming. That never goes. Which means that I am never dies. All these things can go. Which means all these things, like it is going, your body, mind and intellect also can go, but I will exist. Removal of these things doesn't mean removal of the I. You erase these things doesn't mean your I gets erased. But we feel when these things go, I go. He says, no, I never dies. What is the proof, sir? I keeps persisting in and through all this different things. All the different things gets connected to that one I. What is that I? That I is that changeless entity which claims the possession of all these things. And then he gives a very popular example from the scriptures, often used in the scriptures, or rather many times misunderstood also, misused. It gives the example, the scriptures give the example of a puppet show. Yes, there's a puppeteer. He plays the puppet show. He's showing the puppets. There he gives, there are 3 levels of people, he says, or rather 4. Okay, but 3 you can understand first, and then we can go to the 4th fellow. Right? There are 3 levels of people who have that capacity to connect to the puppet show. A child starts looking at that puppet show, it starts thinking, it believes the puppets were moving on their own. Like we all move, like that the puppets move. They think like that actors on the stage move and perform actions. Same way, it thinks the puppets also perform actions like that. Rama comes and shoots the arrow, Ravana comes and he falls, he talks, and exactly the child starts visualizing, believing that puppets were independent agents. That's a very superficial level of understanding. Similarly, there are people who lack that intelligence. Those who lack that intelligence, like childishly, they believe the equipments are independent agents of functioning. They have that independence to function, is what the layman thinks. Now go back to the skeptics. He calls all those people as what? Bala, like children. They look at this body, mind, and intellect, believe they function independently. It is not body functioning. Then there are few people who go slightly intelligent guys, who go up to the level of the strings. They see the strings. Hey, it's not so visible, right? It's not so obviously visible, but if you penetrate, if you probe a little, you can come up to the strings. You can see the strings and say, hey, see that. It is the strings that is making the puppets move. The puppets itself are not moving. Depending upon the strings movement, the puppets are moving. Oh, this is second layer of people. Those who come up to the level of, see, the body is not functioning by itself. The body is only a vehicle used by the mind and intellect. They come up to the string because they can see that clearly. To them it is clear, but not to the first fellow. For the first person, the strings are not visible. These are the intelligent people. With a little intelligence, if you have, you can understand. You say, hey, depending upon the strings, the puppet is moving. Similarly, depending upon the quality of the mind and intellect, the body keeps performing actions. Body functions. Why? Because of the strings pulled by the mind and intellect. Fantastic. Then there are fellows who are more sharper than them. They go up a little. You see, up to that you don't have to look up. You see, you just have to look at the level. That's about it. You just have to keep the eye level. If you have the eye level, and a good eyesight if you have enough. Now that fellow says, no, 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 I look upwards. When I look up to the source of that string, I see a hand. You see, that's the third layer of fellows. Up to this you can come. But what is very interesting in this is, even if you see the hands of the puppeteer, you can never see the puppeteer full. That's the fourth layer. So the first one, the fellow looks at this and says, puppets are independent agents. What's a puppet, sir? Body. Then the mind and intellect is the strings in the example. Okay. Third one is the hand. This is the pure consciousness. But you do get a glimpse of that hand only. You don't get the full idea of what it is. That is the puppeteer. That's the consciousness. So 4 layers that understanding goes. So first what he is doing is, he is giving the proof, as it were, for the possible presence of consciousness, God, Atman, Brahman, whatever. You use any word you want. We don't care. Right? That's not our problem. It depends on your vocabulary. You know, in our context, we'll be using the word self. Right? Use the word self or Atman. The presence of self is pointed out. It's not given as a proof, but it is pointed. It's just a pointers, remember. Only to establish that it is not a groundless belief. You see, the presence of consciousness is not a groundless belief. Nor are we claiming, like these people claiming, that consciousness is a part of the matter. Now, this is where the problem is. This is where Vedanta is different from the so-called, there's advanced scientists, where there are people who study consciousness. They study consciousness as a byproduct of the brain, byproduct of the changes of the brain chemicals. See, that is not what is referred here, because they use that word. That's about it. Like a few years back, one fellow said, no, I found the God particle. And people started claiming he has got God himself, actually. And he himself has said then afterwards, no, no, no. I named it so that everybody get to know about it. Everybody will talk about it. Otherwise, if I just give a strange, some name, if I give, who's going to, who is going to bother about it? They don't care. Just to trigger that interest in the general public, I gave it a name like that. That doesn't mean he has found God. Just a portion of it, please. Now, all this is matter only. This has got nothing to do with the pure consciousness. That's what the first reasoning has established. A changing factor which I experience. There is a changeless factor. And the changeless factor has to be different from the changing factor. Even my so-called consciousness also keeps changing. Therefore, this consciousness, what we are discussing, has got nothing to do with the consciousness that is spoken of by the philosophy, spoken of in Vedanta. So just because we use the same word, that is why we don't prefer to use the same word. That's why every master, changed over a period of time. The words. They started using different words. Why? Not because they want to establish, they are saying something new. That's what subsequent fellows started thinking. They have to use a different word. Why? Because the existing word which was used by people had become too common and too normal. Everybody started using it. Like Upanishads uses the term moksha. Patanjali uses the word samadhi. Buddha uses the word nirvana. Why? You mean to say Patanjali doesn't know that word moksha? Or the term, nirvana not known to the Upanishadic seers? Of course, they all know. They do know those words. But then why they used different terminologies only to give it a new thing? New in the sense, just to trigger your thinking. That's about it. What are you saying? Suppose if we use that same words which you use normally, you don't ever pay attention to it. Since to draw your attention, they use like this. They use very many techniques. One of the technique is to give it a new name. And subsequent people started thinking it's a new philosophy. So that's why you see in that lobby, in the philosophical lobbies, if you see, people always fight. They say samadhi is different, moksha is different, nirvana is different. There are three different things. Why? Because three different words. Three different words should be meaning three different things only. How can you say all three same? Isn't it? That's the fight. Remember, we are not sitting here for that. There's that if you want to do, I'm not against it. That can be done. You can do that also, but we don't do that. You see, that is not the idea here. He says this book is not for those things. This book is only for us to start probing into our life and say that I want to seek. Only after you have become a seeker, this portion begins for you. Otherwise, this book is not for you. Now, who is a seeker, sir? Seeker is one who says that I am willing to spend millions of dollars just to probe and see that possibility. So you have no clue whether this will go and land there. Like last year or so, no? We did last year, a few months back. We spent so much of money. It was about to land about 3 minutes before collapsed. All that money is waste. Are we going to say it's waste? Point is, even if it lands there, what are you going to do? What are we going to do, sir? Maybe after 200 years, something we may do. But as on date, what is the use of it? A person who comes with that attitude is not ready for seeking. Seeker means the one without a proof, a positive proof. He says, I will travel and see it. Not that you go see and tell me. Now that is not for that person, practical Vedanta is of no use. For this academical analysis, if you want, go to part C. If you say that, sir, I want to live my life happily, tell me, can Vedanta help me? Part A. Now, if you say, I want to live my life, I want to enhance my life, I am willing to travel, risk to know what is it. Along with that, I need to have the solid foundation. For that person only, that book Vedanta Treatise. Otherwise, the book will not be of any help to you. Unless you say, sir, through that puppet show, I am not interested in the stage. What is happening, the drama. I'm not interested in the drama. I'm not interested on the puppets. I'm not interested on the strings. I'm not even interested on the fingers. I am interested to know the puppeteer. Then you have to start from where? You can't start from the puppeteer. You see, that's what the whole point is. He says, you can't start from him. Then from where you have to start? You have to start from the study of the puppets. Study the puppets. Then go to the string. From the string, go to the fingers. And then remove the whole screen. The puppeteer is standing there, who is always there. Before the puppet show also he was there. Does the puppets come first or the puppeteer come first? Before the puppets, puppeteer is there, isn't it? Same way here. The consciousness comes first, then comes matter. Now, if you wanted to probe and understand that I have to get back to that consciousness, if your mission is for that, then from where to begin, sir? Have to begin from the puppet. Therefore, what he's doing, he says composite personality. The next topic he moves to. Okay. I'll see you next week. Thank you.